One of, admittedly, a fair few complaints that this channel garners is that I don't do enough American whiskey, so I thought today we would do one of the most ubiquitous brands on the market. This is a miniature of Jim Beam. Most people have probably drank this at some point to probably mixed reception. Now I'm going to quickly point out as well, when I've had this in the past, as a student, I haven't minded it. I've had absolutely no complaints towards it. Red Stag as well, rather liked that. You might be surprised to hear that. I will quickly point out I've not had it in years, but I kind of like flavoured bullshit every once in a while, you know? If you're in the mood for it, why the hell not? So yeah, Jim Beam. I've had it at house parties and stuff long before I got into whiskey. You know, it was one of my sort of go-tos because it was cheap, it was readily available, and I didn't mind how it tasted. And it went well with Coke. You're probably sat there now thinking, wow, you were a very different person back when you were a student. I mean, regeneration can be weird like that. So, here we are. Now, as part of this video as well, I thought, well, I should probably look into them as a brand as well. Because I was expecting to go into this and not have a great deal to say. You know, have your standard, oh, hey, you know, it's not as great as a Glendronach 18, although that's maybe not the bar that it used to be fair. Still not quite sure why they decided to shoot themselves in the... Well, I do and I don't. But anyway, we're not on about that today. Had a bit of a look into some of the history with this brand, and it's actually more interesting than I was expecting. First of all, they're still family owned, which is pretty impressive. They're currently in their 7th generation. That's actually denoted on the side of the bottle, which you won't be able to see from there, but it does actually say Legacy 7 Generations of the Beam Family, and it's got all these white men on the side there. So, I mean, just in case you weren't sure that it was from Kentucky, now I'm sure you are, but, oh yeah, it's a Kentucky Straight Bourbon, I should probably point that out. Now, as well, some interesting points when it comes to the provenance of this whiskey. They've used the same mash bill for 215 years, and they used the same yeast strain for the past 75 years. The distillery has had some issues when it comes to lightning. It's caught fire a few times in the last couple of decades, and it's caused pretty severe losses. So what the head distiller has been doing is keeping a copy of the yeast strain in their own fridge, which apparently goes all the way back to when the distillery originally opened. That's just a tradition that they have, just in case something happens, which, to be fair, when you've been struck by lightning, I think 3 times in the last 20 years now, fair enough. They were one of the first, in fact, I think they were the first to use charred oak barrels for maturation. Oh, and they were one of the first ones to use column stills as well, which are a very cheap and efficient way of making spirit. They won't go into the magic of column stills, but it's the same way that Scottish grain whiskey is made, and some gins, not all gins, but some gins, and a fair few vodkas. It's a really quick and reliable way of making spirit constantly. Sometimes also called continuous stills because they run continuously. That's so logical. So yeah, a fair few facts there. Jim Beam is everywhere. They're a huge label, and because they have such a wide distribution, they're also cheap, which is handy. Now, I don't think they have anywhere near the same cult status that Jack Daniels does. Jack Daniels is almost a badge of honour for the ladship in the UK. It is. It's almost like it's got a cult of personality all of its own, you know? And it's alright, you know, it's alcohol. But do you know, we'll be getting to Jack Daniels later on in the year. But I'm curious to see if my tastes have changed. I mean, they have, but I'm curious to see where I am with this whiskey now. And if it is just the fact that it's just cheap because it's so widely distributed. One of the things as well, because of the laws surrounding Kentucky bourbon, it's natural colour. So that's exciting. That's the difference between having a legal protection and it being a voluntary thing. They probably would colour it if they could, but they can't. So, I'm all for that. So as such, it is, you know, it's a lovely, bright amber colour in the glass. It's quite vegetal on the nose. On the first sip, I'm getting kind of like aloe vera. It's actually reminding me a lot of the mellow corn that we covered a few weeks ago. I'm getting like sweet corn aromas, which again, it's not too surprising because there will still be corn as part of the mash bill. Yeah, there's this lovely, like, almost syrupy sweetness to it. Something a little bit like steamed spinach in there as well. It's quite a green nose that it's got. Loads of corn. Loads of corn. Yeah, it really is reminding me of mellow corn, because that's where I remember that aroma from. I have a particular memory of how Jim Beam tastes and smells, and it's not tying up with what I'm getting in the glass now, but to be fair, when I was drinking it previously, I was not being very analytical about it, so that's possibly why. Yeah, it's like a honey sweetness. It's like honey nut cornflakes. Let's go with that as honey, peanut, and corn in there. Put them all together, you get honey nut cornflakes. Other cereals are available, I guess, but it's like a vanilla, kind of a baked vanilla, kind of like vanilla pancakes. You know, like sometimes like if you make like thick pancakes and put a little bit of vanilla essence in there to give them a bit of a pop. Maybe that's just me, but the nose is quite simple, but what you do get is enticing, so that's good. I doubt many people go in with their nose and are like, I'm getting notes of this, that, and the next thing, because it's not usually why people buy this whiskey. And I'm sorry to say that for it, given, you know, it has such a long-standing history, but it's not. I'm just being honest. Yeah, there's no unpleasant notes. There's nothing off about it. There's nothing that's giving me kind of like an indication of, ooh, there's something a bit rough about this. It seems perfectly lovely, to be honest, as a nose goes. It's very inviting and warm and sweet and a little bit vegetal. So I'm interested to see what it tastes like. Okay. Right. It's really syrupy, like golden syrup. Again, a bit weird given that we're talking about an American whiskey. But it does remind me of like this very thick, sweet, slightly saline syrup. Once that goes away, there's a little bit of like a fruity component. A little bit like red berry, like raspberries and blackberries, if you stewed them down in a compote and added sugar. So it's not like fresh raspberries or fresh blackberries. It's once you've processed them into something else. The palate is quite simple. I'm getting a fair whack of vanilla, cornflakes, loads of cornflakes on there. The nut element is gone, and the sweetness has been replaced with obviously that golden syrup, almost like salted caramel kind of a flavour. I've never tried like corn syrup. It could well be what corn syrup would taste like. It's like a sweet corn flavoured syrup. I'm assuming that's what corn syrup would taste like. Am I right? Let me know. It is simple. It's not overwhelmingly complicated by any stretch of the imagination. It's pleasant. I am not getting any sort of like ethanol-y harsh notes, which you get with a lot of cheap blends in the UK. They tend to have like a really rough element to them, which is not present here. It's, again, I know people have an issue with the word smooth, but you know what? Let's go with this instead. It goes down easy. Is that really better? If anything, it's significantly worse, let's face it. So I'm going to say smooth. It is smooth. I am struggling to nail down any interesting tasting notes because I don't think they're really present. I could make something up if you want. Tastes like the first bite of a Christmas tangerine on the 23rd of December. It doesn't. So, you know, there's like a little bit of a sourness to it, kind of like sourdough bread. I'm not sure I needed to specify that that was bread. You know, sourdough croissants, although apparently they do exist, and apparently they're amazing. I've not managed to get my hands on one yet. Anyway, we're not here to talk about croissants, John. Be good if we were, though. Yeah, there's like a slight sour element to it. It just gives it kind of like a slight acidic tang. And then the corn takes over, and oh boy, there's a lot of corn. Let me tell you, there's a lot of corn. Gets a little bit spicy towards the finish. Again, simple flavours, sweet corn, spice, sweet and corn, not sweet corn, although, yes. I mean, hey, if we're hitting the hammer of corn, then yeah, sure, a bit of sweet corn. Though not really, if I'm honest. Sweet corn has a very definite flavour to it. And it doesn't really remind me of that, which is weird because it is sweet in both corn, but I don't get sweet corn out of it. Is this making any sense? This probably isn't making any sense, but I like it. It's simple, but you know what? You can sip it in an emergency. It's an emergency sipper. Obviously, it's designed to mix, and unlike some mixers, again, that you get in the UK, where you're mixing it because it's shit, you're mixing this because it's simple and it will add something to the drink you're making. So I'd probably pick Jim Beam over most mixing blend Scotch, because most blended Scotch for mixing is terrible. Let's be completely frankly honest there. I'm not saying they all are, before people have a go at me, but let's face facts. I mean, Famous Grouse, Bell's, Johnny Walker Red. I mean, Johnny Walker Red wasn't terrible, but I mean, you know, the whole of the Johnny Walker line, with exception to the Sweet Pea and the green label, have this really horrible bite at the end of it, which just kind of, it's the signature of poorly made or rushed whiskey. I could make a living off of them by saying they're nice, and they'd be like, here, have some money. But I'm not doing that because I'm stupid. It's almost like I don't pay attention to the news, that you don't get anywhere by being an honest person, but hey ho. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Jim Beam. Now, wouldn't it be fun if we had a bottle from the 70s to compare, to see what differences there were between the old stock and the new stock, or indeed different generations of the family looking after the brand? Well, I got us covered. This is a bottle from the 70s, and I know that for the fact because it has the signatures of the 5th and 6th generation, and the 5th generation human didn't die until 77. So at the very latest, this is late 70s. I don't know why you would keep the name on after somebody's died, although feel free to correct me. This is sort of a time capsule in and of itself. It's sealed at the top, it's still got like an export stamp on it, and I'm going to crack it open and drink it. It's sort of like the anchovies in Futurama, where they're like one of the most valuable fuel sources, and I'm just like, nah, I'm going to eat them instead. I'm like, okay then. But I'm looking forward to this. This getting into an antique. So yeah, those are my thoughts. If you want to know how I rate this whiskey, then the Google Sheets will be down below, along with all the other ratings that I've covered on the channel and a couple of other ones as well. Let me know your thoughts down below. Have you tried Jim Beam? Do you like Jim Beam? Do you hate Jim Beam? What do you think of Red Stag? What do you think of cherry flavoured whiskey? There we go, that should keep you all busy. Thumb the video if you enjoyed it, and if you want to catch the vintage 70s Jim Beam comparison show-off, showdown verbs, then make sure to subscribe to the channel and you'll get a notification if you hit the bell icon, which you should, because I said so? That's not a good enough reason.